Welcome to our Data Science, Machine Learning and AI course, your first step towards mastering the skills to become an artificial intelligence AI expert. Our current module is all about Python fundamentals. Check out the full playlist in the description for everything we have covered so far and hit subscribe to stay updated with new lessons and future modules. Today we are going to learn about functions in Python. And functions in Python actually, or in any programming languages, are the core functionality, and it actually takes all the code that you want to reuse and actually adds it in a block that you can just call. So very important concept. Please watch this video till the end so that you can understand the complete concept. And there are some things that you always have to remember while writing some functions. So first thing, actually, functions are actually to be reused. Functions are pieces of code that you write that you want to reuse again and again, like print. Print is a function, and we use the print function to actually print anything. Similarly, and it is used multiple times, the print function is used so many times. So how we define a function, we have a syntax here that is used to define a function, and there are some things that are compulsory to write and some are optional. So as a syntax of a function, you need to specify it using a def keyword. So def is a keyword that defines the function, and then it follows a space and then the function name. Remember that there are some restrictions for the function name. You cannot have spaces in the function name, or you cannot have some special characters inside the function name. So try to actually be as simple and concise with the function names. And if you have very big function names, like if you have multiple words that you want to use as a function name, please separate them by an underscore, and then you have this parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis you specify the parameters or arguments for your function. Like in the print statement, we always define a string to print, and then we enclose it in a by a parenthesis. The same way, we actually have this function name written here, then we have a parenthesis, and then we have this arguments, and then the parenthesis will be closed. And then we have a doc string, very important. If you are writing a very clean code that you want others to also understand in future, and for yourself as well, if you write a code today and after 3 months you are looking at it again, you want to understand what this code is about, and what parameters it take, what are the data types of those parameters. So it is very good thing. All the libraries and packages that we will learn later, they all have it very well documented. And I'll show you an example how you can actually include a doc string. And then we have a code block. Remember the indentation. Anything that you want to write inside the function must follow this indentation block. And then we have this return statement at the end. You can return any value that you have actually computed using your function, or you can actually do not include any return statement, and what will happen, the function will return none. We will also see an example for that. So what is very important is def keyword, the function name, open and close parenthesis, colon at the end to terminate that the function definition line is ending here, and then we need to have some piece of code inside here. Doc string is optional, return value is optional if you need it, but you must have some code that is compulsory and must follow the indentation. Now we have a greet function here, and what does this greet function do is that it takes a name and then it says hello and just prints the name. Let's execute this one. We just executed it and it says hello Abdul. And over here, what I will do, I will even do a keyword help here. Help is a function. Now what does help do? If you pass a function to it, it will print the doc string of that function. So which is this one. And remember, these three quote sign in the beginning and then three quotes sign at the end is for strings that should have multiple lines. So I can even press and enter here and press and enter here as well. I can even write our first function, and then I need to execute it one time. Now I just executed it. If I just type greet inside help and run the cell, you see it just printed the name of the function and also the doc string, which is our first function to greet. So it's a good practice to have a doc string to explain what your function does. And in the same way, if we even check the help for print function, for example, we will see that it even gives us details about the parameters as well, what parameter we can provide it. So these are some details that you can include in the doc string. Now we already have defined this greet function, so I will not write this code again. I already have executed it, so it is in the memory of the this notebook that this function is defined greet. So I will not write the code again. I will just use the keyword greet. So here I am going to ask user to enter their name using the input keyword, and then whatever the value is stored in the user input, I will pass it to the greet function. So I'll run this cell. So enter your name. I will say Abdul Wahab and enter. So hello Abdul Wahab. So see, I did not redefine the function. The function is already defined on top, and here I just actually have used that function. So that is the advantage of writing functions, that once you write a piece of code, you don't need to repeat writing all those lines of code again and again, and you can just call that function. Very nice. And now even you don't need to save the value in a separate variable. There is another example that this statement of input, asking the user to input their name and then passing it to the greet function as a string, we can even do it directly. So just write that thing here inside these open and close parentheses, and what will happen is that it will ask the user to enter his name, and then that result will be actually passed as an argument or parameter to this greet function. Let's execute it. It's asking our name again here. Let me just write my first name and press enter. It says hello Abdul. So still we are reusing the function again and again. Now there are some times when you are writing code and you have a function, but you are saying that I will implement it later, or I have some other priorities to do in the code right now, but I really need to implement this function later. You just define the function. You have the definition of the function. You say def is a keyword, then we have space, and then we have the name of the function, and then arguments. We don't want to specify any arguments at the moment, and we have written a doc string to be implemented. This function will calculate the average of list of numbers, and then we write pass. So remember when we learn about these control flow statements in our previous video where we discussed the continue, break and pass statements. Pass does nothing. It's just a placeholder. So if I execute this one, there will be no error. And if I even come here and write this calculate average function and call it, it does not do anything. And if I run the cell with help, it prints this doc string. And also, if you do not write this pass here and then try to run this one, it has executed, and because you have this doc string here as well. But if I actually comment it and now run this cell, it is going to give me an error, incomplete input, because nothing was there. If we don't have the doc string and we don't even have the pass statement, it will have an error. So I will just uncomment all this part of the code again, and now you have this here. I will run this cell, everything is fine, and now we can even run it again. So it's just to show that it's a placeholder. Now functions can have arguments and return values. We discussed about the return and arguments both. So there can be different kinds of arguments. Positional arguments that must be passed in an order, and then we have these keyword arguments passed as key value pairs, where we define what will be the name of the variable and what will be the value of the variable. Then we can also have some default arguments, like you don't want to specify all the values every time and you want to keep some default values. So that is the way to actually have some default arguments. Then you can also have some variable length arguments. We will not cover the variable length arguments in this video. We will actually cover them later in some other coding examples when we will be doing. But now if we dive directly into the arguments and also some default arguments, for the syntax for that is very simple. So here we have the definition of a function. We have the def keyword, we have space, and we have add numbers. That is the name of the function. Then we have the argument A and we have argument B. Now this is the default value argument. The default value is set to 0. So if we do not specify the second argument, fine, it will be considered 0. But if we specify a value, then it will use the provided value. So here is an example. Here is an example with positional arguments. So the first argument is A, second argument is B. When we run this function, it is going to return is a keyword, it is going to return the sum of A and B. That is what it is going to return. So as positional arguments, when I just write 5 and 3, these are the positions. So in the definition of the function, whatever is defined first is the value of A, whatever is defined later is the value of B. Then it will just add 5 and 3 and return 8. And if I just say add numbers and I specify 5 and I have not written the second value, it will be considered the default value, which is 0. Let's run this. See, now it has printed 8 for 5 and 3, and it has actually printed 5 for this last one. We can also do it in this way as well. A equal 5, B equal 3. Now over here, if you see, I have actually defined the value, key value pairs, that for the A we want to have a value of 5, for B we want to have a value of 3 as well. I can run this cell and this can also execute correctly. And now the scope and lifetime of variables, that is very nice thing. Local and global variables. It is very important in terms of function. Remember, any variable inside the function is actually going to live only through the execution of that function. And after that, if you are not returning it, any variable that is created inside a function is a local variable. It will not be accessible outside, and it will be actually deleted from the memory as after the execution of the function. But the only variables that are input to the function and returned by the function and you have saved them somewhere, they will be retained as global variables. So that is actually the lifespan for local and global variables. Let's take an example. We have x equal 10. Consider it a global variable because it is defined outside a function. And now we have a function called func, and it does not take any argument. And we have x equal 5 inside the function, which is a local variable, and we say print inside function. Now, when we call this function, what it should do, it should print the value of x inside the function, and then outside the function we already have a value set to 10, and you will see that it will not change. So see, inside the function it is x. That was a local variable defined inside the function, but externally the value of x is 10. It remained 10. So any variable created inside the function is actually just created locally for that execution, and after that it is deleted from the memory. So that was the concept of local and global. Whatever is outside the function remains global, is accessible, but if that same variable name is used inside the function, it will be only created locally, temporarily, for the execution of that function and will be erased from the memory. Now, there are different use cases of the return statement. Return statement can be used in very different ways, and there can be a single value return, there can be a multiple value return, there can be no return statement as well. So for example, in this case, we have seen this function before where we have a single value return where we add A and B. In this function, we have the definition keyword, we have the space, we have the add, which is the function name, A and B are the arguments, and it is returning A plus B. I can just run this cell. We will see the result as 8. Now, we can even return multiple values. For example, we have get name and age function. So we just say define get name and age, and it has these two variables inside, and it returns name comma age. So if you want to return more than one variable from the return statement, you need to separate them by a comma. That is the practice. And then add a space for a good readability of the code. Now, when we run this cell, get name age, what it will do, it will return these two variables. And you can actually store them into different variables. I can even say name1, age1, name1, age1, like this. So when it returns these two variables from this function, we store them into different variables. I will run this one here. You see, address and 30. And in the same way, we can also have more than two variables as well, and then we can just return them in three variables here. So for example, if we have here name, age, and city equal, I say any city, it can be, okay, Paris, I like Paris. So I will just return city as well, and then I can just say city 1, and then I can just return and run this. So see, it has now returned Paris as well. Okay, so it will be returned in the same sequence here. Returning none. If we do not specify any return statement, then implicitly none is actually returned. None is showing no value. So if you have a greet function that we have tried before as well, if we write it again, it does not actually return anything. You can see there is no return statement. So if I execute this one, the result should be none. That is when we do not have any return value from the function, so we get none. So functions in Python are very important. They are very useful for the reusability of the code, and we need to structure them very well so we can actually understand. And in the next video, I'm actually going to show a practical exercise for all of you to actually practice. And the solution will not be provided yet. I really want you all to actually try that practical exercise yourself, and then in a later video I will also add a solution to that. Its solution can even be gotten from the ChatGPT and other language models, but please try it yourself first, and then if you have any questions, you can ask the language models, ChatGPT, Claude, and any other AI tool to help you, and I will also provide step-by-step video solution for that as well later. Till then, have a good day.